Hey everyone, this video is continuing on with our study of solving equations. In this case, we're moving on to multi-step equations. This is a big category, but basically it means that you have more than one calculation that you have to do in order to solve it. We did one separately on two-step equations. This one, anything I'm calling multi-step, is going to be more than two. All multi-step equations can turn into a two-step. This video is going to focus on multi-step equations including like terms. So first we're going to go over what like terms are, and then we're going to do a couple of examples of equations that we can solve that contain like terms. So let's first look at what like terms are. So like terms are the parts of an equation or an expression that contain the same variable. Now, they also are supposed to have the same power on that variable. We're going to ignore that for now because we're not going to worry about equations with powers at this point. We're going to stick with what are called linear equations, which means they have a power of 1. So for example, any two numbers, like let's say 2 and 5, are like terms. 3a and 4a are like terms. So these are all like terms. But if I have 4a and 4b, these are not like terms because they have different variables. The number in front of the variable, or the coefficient, doesn't matter. That's why things like 2 and 5, which are different numbers, are considered like terms. Now, if we look at how we can deal with combining these, we can figure out how to simplify stuff. So let's say that we have our 3a and we're trying to add 4a. These are like terms, so we can put them together. I ignore the variable and all I do is the operation on the coefficients. 3 plus 4, which will give us 7a. So that is our answer. We ignore the variable, we just attach it in the end, and that's what we're going to use to solve our equations. So let's look at our first equation. We have 3x plus 5 minus x equals 15. Now first I'm going to separate the left side and the right side. Remember, that's very important to do. But I also notice there's something different here. We have an x with no coefficient, with no number in front of it. There actually is one there. It's the number 1. Now there is a minus, so you can sort of think of it as -1 being there, but we're sort of just going to put that 1 in there, and it will help us when we look things over and combine things. Now I do have one set of like terms, 3x and -1x. We're only concerned with like terms that are on the same side of the equation. You want each side of the equation to be no more than 2 terms. We have 3, so we need to break that down smaller. So I'm going to simply do 3x minus 1x. That plus stays with the 5, has nothing to do with it. 3x minus 1x is 2x. Plus 5, I'll carry that down, equals, and I'll carry down the 15. I can finally now circle my x because I don't want that to move, and now I can solve it. I need to get rid of that 5 first. Remember, anything touching the variable moves last. So the 5 goes first. It's a plus 5, so I do the opposite with a minus 5. So I can cancel out the 5's. I now have 2x equals 10. Now to get rid of that 2, I divide by it since it's technically a times. Divide by 2. So I can cancel out those 2's. And I'm left with x equals 5. So there's our answer. Now remember, in order to make certain that our answer is also a solution, we need to check it, make certain that it works. So I'm going to write my equation, except I'm going to plug a 5 in. 3 times 5 plus 5 minus 5. I'm not going to bother with the 1, don't need it, equals 15. So here's our first step. 3 times 5 is 15, plus 5 minus 5 equals 15. Now I'm going to simply go left to right. So 15 plus 5 is 20, minus 5 equals 15. Bring everything down. Then 20 minus 5 is 15, equals 15. So it checks. So we do know that 5 is the solution to this equation. Now we're going to look at another bit more involved problem, and we're going to look at a couple of shortcuts when we get up especially into the check. But there are going to be a couple of shortcuts that we'll use here. So first we're going to have 2 minus 4x plus 3 minus 2x. Now you will notice that I use x a lot. You don't have to use x. It can be whatever variable is given to you. It all works the same. I'm just going to use x because it's the most commonly used variable in algebra. So I'm going to separate my left side from my right side. Now, I've got two sets of like terms. I'm going to circle one set. I've got 2 and 3. Notice I did circle the plus sign. I want to keep that with that 3. And then I'm going to put a box around my other like terms. I've got negative 4x and negative 2x. Those negatives have to be there. They are important. Now I could combine the 2 and the 3, write everything down, then combine the x's. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to simply combine both sets at the same time. This is allowed. Just be very careful. If you're not comfortable with that, then do one step at a time. First, we have 2 plus 3, which is going to give us 5. And then we have negative 4x minus 2x, so negative 4 minus 2 is negative 6x equals 17. Notice we now have a two-step equation. So first I need to get rid of that 5. Now remember, there's a minus sign there, but that is in front of the 6, not the 5. If you don't see a symbol in front of a number, then it's a plus sign. It's a positive 5. So I have to use subtraction. So I'm going to subtract 5 from both sides. So I bring down the negative 6x equals 17 minus 5 is going to be 12. Now my last step is to get rid of that negative 6, so I'm going to divide by negative 6. That's our opposite operation. So the negative 6's are gone. So that means that x equals negative 2. So there's our answer. Now I want to do my check. Now there's a bit more to it because the variable's in two places. So I'm going to write 2 minus 4. Now since I'm plugging a negative in, I'm going to use parentheses so I don't accidentally forget the negative sign. 3 minus 2, again, parentheses, negative 2, equals 17. Again, I've got two things I can do here. I can deal with that and that at the same time. Since they're not touching each other, we can do them at once, which is what I'm going to do. Again, it's a shortcut. You don't have to. You can do each one separately, but the shortcut can be very helpful. -4 times -2 is +8. Then we have +3. -2 times -2, +4, equals 17. Now again, I'm just going to work left to right. Again, you could add up these faster. Remember, it's addition, so you can flip the order around. That's okay. But I'm just going to go in the order listed. So 2 plus 8 is going to give us 10. Then I'll bring everything else down. Then we've got 10 plus 3. So that's going to give us 13. And then we've got 13 plus 4, which is going to give us 17. And it checks, so we know that we do have our solution, that all of this has worked. Remember, the key thing again with any equation solving is just take your time, go step by step. The more involved the problem, the more difficult it is. Don't try to cram it through in your head. Follow the steps, write it out, and then make certain to check it. If your answer didn't work, you need to go back and see what happened. So in the next video, we'll look at distributive property, and we'll add variables on both sides, and then we'll do some examples where they're all